Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com. This is episode 20 of Photoshop for Photographers. Recently, I went to the Buffalo Zoo and I took hundreds of images of the animals. And I've been posting them over the last couple days to, Instagram, Facebook, places like that. And I posted this image, I think, to Facebook. And actually, one of my former students mentioned to me that this would be a great image to replace the background with. And it kind of dawned on me when we go to the zoo, we prefer to take pictures of the animals so they look like they're in the wild, not like they're in an enclosure. And often it's impossible. Well, a lot of times Photoshop could help us. We could change out backgrounds and do things to make it look like the animals are in the wild. So I did just that. I did this image with this background and I posted it to Facebook. So I had a couple people ask me, how'd you do that? Could you do a video on how it's done? So in this episode of Photoshop for Photographers, I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, those of you that are a little more advanced in Photoshop, please, I apologize in advance. I'm going to be very basic. I'm going to explain every step along the way. And the reason why is since Adobe has come out with this photography bundle of Lightroom CC and Photoshop CC for like 10 bucks a month. A lot of people are new to Photoshop, and I've been getting a lot of questions from folks asking me things about Photoshop because they're not familiar with the program. So I'm going to be real, like, kind of basic here and explain every step along the way. Now, what we're going to do is we have the image here fully processed in Lightroom. We're going to send it over to Photoshop. Now, you could send the photo, the main photo, and your background image at the same time as layers in Photoshop. I usually prefer not to do it that way, and I'm going to explain why when we get there, but I'm going to do them individually. So I'm going to select this one of the lions, and I'm going to right-click on the image, and I'm going to go down to Edit In, and we're going to go up to Adobe Photoshop CC 2017. And this box pops up, and it's asking me if you want to do a copy or the original. I'm going to do a copy with Lightroom adjustments because if I don't like what I do in Photoshop, I still have the original one to fall back on. And it will take it, it created another image or a copy of the image, and we're in Photoshop. So we're going to go back down here to Lightroom, and we're going to select our background image. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go down to Edit In, and then we're going to go up to Adobe Photoshop CC 2017. I get asked the same question. This time I'm just going to edit the original because we're actually not going to damage this one at all. We're actually just borrowing it. And you'll see what I mean when, as we do it. So we're going to just send the original over there. So I have them in Photoshop. You can see there's the two tabs. Now, if your Photoshop doesn't look like mine, there's different workspaces you could use in Photoshop. You could get the workspaces right here by clicking here. And by default, you'll be in the Essentials workspace. I use the Photography workspace. So if you want your Photoshop to look like mine, go to the Essential or to the Photography workspace. You also could go up to Window Workspace, and then you can see the Photography is checked. So we're in the Photography workspace. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to get that sky image over here with the image of the lion. So we're going to click the sky image. We're going to get the Move tool. The Move tool is the first tool in our tool palette, and V is in Victor is the keyboard shortcut to get to that tool. We're simply going to go right on this image. We're going to left click with the mouse button and then drag it right up to the other image while I'm holding in that left mouse button. Then I'm going to drop it right on top of this image. Now if I want to drop it right in the middle, a little cheat you could do is hold the shift key in and it will center everything up and drop it right in the middle. Now when I do that, you'll see this box pops up because there's different depths than the source document. One is an 8-bit and the other is a 16-bit. It's really no big deal. Just click yes. All right. Now this box popped up in this instance because one of them is sRGB and the other one is ProPhoto RGB. Just click OK. It doesn't matter. Okay. We're good to go. Now, the reason why I prefer to do it this way, send them both over individually. The photograph of the sky was taken with a full frame camera. The photograph of the lions was taken with a crop sensor camera. And I know the full frame image is going to be a lot bigger. And if I sent them over as layers, sent them over together, and they'd be here right when you open Photoshop. They're right here together. I would have had to crop it to make them fit. So it's just kind of saves you that step. So we're good to go. So what we're going to do now is you can see on the right hand panel we have the layer 1, that's our sky, and if you click this little eyeball it turns it off and we could see our lions below. That's what we want. We want the sky above the lions. It's kind of counterintuitive because we're replacing the background, but the layer has to be on top to do that. So have it like that, but we're going to keep it off. And what we want to do is get a selection of this background. Now there's two default selection tools in Lightroom. If you hit the W key on your keyboard, that's the keyboard shortcut. Or if you go down here, it's the fourth like cubby hole down. And in that cubby hole, you have two tools, the quick selection tool and the magic wand tool. We want the quick selection tool. And you can see there's a tiny little brush in there. And you can make it bigger with the right bracket key, and you can make it smaller with the left bracket key. Now, the mistake a lot of people make when they're first using Photoshop is, fine, now we turned off that layer, we're going to make a selection here. And as you make your selection of this background, by holding in the left mouse button, you can see it just selected everything. It's like Photoshop didn't know what it was doing. And that's because over here in this panel, we have to be active on the layer with the lions, meaning as you can see, we're active on layer 1. Even though it's turned off, we're on that layer. We have to be on this layer. So make sure you're on the layer that contains the pixels that you're trying to select. Now I want to get rid of this selection, so I'm going to hit Command D. That's for deselect. If you have a PC, it's Control D. All right, now I want to make the selection now, so I'm on the correct layer to make the selection. And we're just going to go. Now it's going to be rough. It's not going to be perfect. Don't worry, we're going to fix it as we go along. So we're just going to select this background, and this background's rather busy, so it's going to be a little more challenging to do a good selection here because the background has a lot of stuff in it, a lot of different colors, a lot of different tonality to it, and Photoshop is going to have a hard time understanding what is the background and what is the lions. Okay, so we have this very rough selection. Now I'm going to zoom in. I want to get a better look at my selection, so I'm going to hit Command plus. If you have a PC, you'd hit Control plus. Now I'm going to hit it twice. Now, I still have the selection tool, and I want to move the image around. So I'm going to hold the space bar in. You can see it turns in that little hand tool, so we could drag the image around now by clicking on the left mouse button and just dragging the image around. And you can see we over-selected a little bit here. We have some of this lion selected. We don't want her selected, of course. We just want the background selected. So we have to deselect her. To do that, if you look at the tool, you might notice inside there's a little plus. If I hold the Option key in, that's Option because I have a Mac. If you have a PC, it's the Alt key. You'll see it turns into a minus. That's to deselect. Now I want to get a smaller tool, so I'm going to hit the left bracket key. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try to get a better selection. Now it's going to, go too much one way and too much the other way. But what you'll find is it gets smarter as you go. The more you do it, like seesawing back and forth, it tends to get a little more intelligent as you go. Now you might have to vary your brush size now and then. But you can see it's getting a little better. Slow but sure. So it's patience is the key. Oops, I didn't push in the Alt key, and I screwed up. Okay, so we get that. Let's see. Okay, now we have a lot of her face selected over here, so we want to get that better selected on her ear and not her face. Now we're just going to try to inch it up a little bit. Now we're going to refine this edge in a minute, so don't get too particular during this stage. Just get it as, roughly as good as you can. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hold this. I got her face selected, okay for now. That was the main issue, but I want to examine the selection all the way around. So I'm going to hit the space bar again, hold it in, and drag over here. And you can see I have some of this brick or rock she's laying on selected. So I'm going to deselect that, hold the Option key in, again, Alt key if you have a PC, deselect that, and I'm just going to examine my selection all the way around her. You can see I have part of her body selected here. So again, I'm going to hold that Alt or Option key in. Now just be aware I'm working on a Mac, so it has Option and Command keys. If you have a PC, you would substitute the Alt key for the Option key and the Control key for the Command key. So if I forget to say it, just remember that's what you do, and you'll be good to go. All right, we have a little bit of the cub selected here, so we're going to deselect that. And that's not bad. We have a little more of them selected over here. All right, we have a little bit of the rock selected we don't want selected. Okay. All right. I think our selection is roughly okay. Now, I want to zoom back out. You could hit the Command minus on your keyboard, Control minus if you have a PC, or you could just hit Command 0 or Control 0, and it will fit it to screen. All right, our selection's not bad. So we're going to refine the edge. Now, if you're using an older version of Photoshop, up here there'd be Refine Edge button. Now it's called Select and Mask. So we're going to click on that. It's will bring you the same way. It just cosmetically looks a little different, but it does the same exact thing if you're using an older version of Photoshop. So we have different views. You can see right now we have this, mask overlay background. You could use an onion skin. You could do marching ants, the overlay on black, on white. Now, different images seem to work better with different types of views. This one I think we'll go with the overlay look. Okay, so what we're going to do is there's boxes here. Now, if you're not open, we're in edge detection. So make sure you click on that little expose triangle, and we're going to do edge detection. Now, I wish I could tell you that I could just give you numbers to dial in here with these sliders, and it works for every image, but it doesn't. Um, Sometimes radius on some images you have to push way up to give you a better selection. Sometimes very little. Well, most times it's below 10, to tell you the truth. So this image here, it's really relatively smooth. There's not a lot of jagged edges on her. She's, relatively smooth. So I don't think we have to go too high with radius. You would click on and off Smart Radius to see if it improves your selection at all. And as I click it, it's not doing anything. So I don't think it really matters. Now, these global refinements, we could smooth our edge. Now our selection, you could see how it was a little jagged when we were doing it. You could smooth it a little bit. Usually I don't go too crazy with any slider. So usually all my sliders are well under 10. So I might just smooth it, like 5. Feather it just a little. This usually helps it kind of blend into the background a little better if you feather that edge. So usually I don't go too crazy here either, 3 to 5 pixels. Contrast, in this image it won't help because the background had a lot of tones in it and it was a busy background. If you took an image of, let's say, a blonde model wearing white on a black background in your studio, contrast would help you get a better selection because it's looking for the edge contrast between her white outfit and that black background, her blonde hair and that black background. So that would help. In this case, it's not going to help at all. Also, you could shift the edge in or out. It might help the selection look a little better. I don't think we need to do that here. Now, you might notice that as we're on this screen, this refine edge screen, we have a brush. You could actually brush along the edges that you want to refine, and Photoshop will take a look at that and see if it could make a better selection. In this case, because that background was so busy, I doubt it's going to do a very good job, but we'll try. We'll just go on the edge of her fur right here. And you can see how it just kind of gave her a fur cut. We don't want that. I really don't want that at all. I'd rather have that fur there. So to go back a step to undo what you did, I have a Mac. I'm going to hold in the Option and Command key, then hit the Z as in zebra key. If you have a PC, it's Alt Control Z as in zebra, and it will just go back a step. So I'm satisfied with the selection. I think it's good enough the way it is. A lot of people really get hung up on their selections, especially when you're first starting out. Trust me, you don't have to. A lot of times you're wasting a lot of time. People won't know unless you specifically told them you replace the background. Then they might look a little more with a little more scrutiny and might notice something. But usually no one's going to know. So we're okay, and now we have this output settings. I want to output this to a selection. You have different choices here. In this case, to a selection, we're going to click OK. So we have our selection of our background. Now we want to activate this top layer again. Okay, you could see now our selection is still there, and we want to go on that layer. So make sure that layer is active. Click right on it. And you want to go down here to the mask icon. That's a rectangle with a circle in the middle. All you need to do is click on that. And you could see it masked out the background now. And you could see it doesn't look that great. We still have some work to do. First of all, there's two things that jump out at me. The background is too dark. Our lions are a lot brighter than our background, so it doesn't look natural. Secondly, is the lions are in a different type of light. The background is a lot warmer, and our lions are a lot more neutral. So we want to fix these things. Let's make the background brighter first. Um, well, actually, before I do that, I want to move it around a little bit. It seems like it's not right. I want to move it up in the air a little bit and have these clouds a little higher in the sky. Now, we need the Move tool, so you could hit the V as in Victor key for the Move tool, or just click right on it there. Now, if I just move it right now, you'll see that it's like a cutout. You see? Well, there's two reasons for that. So I'm just going to hit Option Command Z again. That is, actually it brought me back all the way. There we go. Um, so we're back to where we started here now with this. So again, if I moved it, it's not good. So we hit Option Command Z or Alt Control Z to undo that. That is two reasons why it's doing that. We're on the mask. We have this mask selected. There's three elements here. We have the background layer, the mask for the background layer, and then we have the foreground layer. We want to make sure that we're on the actual image of the background. So make sure you click there. Now if I still try to move it, it's still going to be a cutout, right? So we're going to hit Option Command Z to undo that. See this little like chain link right here? That means that this layer is locked to the mask. We want to unlock them. So just click on it and it goes away. Now we're on this. Now we actually could move it and the mask doesn't move. So what we want to do is we want to just, I think, like that. So this, it looks a little more natural. The clouds are a little higher in the sky and we have some land back here, or trees at least, and it gives it kind of more of a base, a grounding. So it looks a little better. So I'm fine with that. Now what we want to do is we want to brighten up that background. So I'm going to use a tool or an adjustment layer, they call it, called levels. And if you go right here, that's color balance, there it is, levels. It's the second tool over right there. And right now, if I go to brighten it up, what I would do is I would go to this slider in the far right. If I go to brighten up, it's going to brighten the whole image. See how it's making our lions brighter also? We don't want that. I want it to just affect that background layer and not affect the lions. This little icon right here will clip it to this layer. So we click there. Now it's clipped to that layer, the background layer. It will only brighten the background and not brighten the lions. So we're going to brighten that up pretty much. Like something like that, I think is good. Now we could come and readjust that if you need to, but I think that's okay. So we made that brighter. Now, our lions are still a little more neutral colored, and we have still a considerably warmer background. And I want to warm up those lions a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the layer that controls, or that is the lions, and we want to put a photo filter on that. There's different ways you could do this. In this case, I think a photo filter will work fine. It's this icon right here. It's the little camera with a circle in the corner. We click on that. We want a warming filter. There's a little drop down here. You have all these different warming filters and color filters and cooling filters. I think an 85 warming filter will be fine. And in this case, I don't have to clip it to that layer because that's the only layer below it. These adjustment layers only affect what's below them. They don't affect anything above them. All right? So we're going to warm them up. You can see I can make them like, you know, radiate orange. We don't want that. Just warmed up quite a bit, but not so much that they glow. So something like that. I think it looks now a little more natural. Now, a couple things we could do here. As I look at it, this edge, if I zoom in by hitting Command plus, you can see it kind of has like a little black edge kind of there. Sometimes you get a little white edge there. There's different ways you could get rid of those. In this case, I'm going to use a brush. So I'm going to click on the mask. I'm on the mask now, all right, for that layer. And I'm going to get a brush. The B key is for brush, or it's this tool right here. All right, so you want the brush. And if you go down here, we have the swatches, white and black. If yours aren't white and black, hit D on your keyboard. D for default. That gives you the default colors. Also, you want the white in front. If it's not in front, hit the X key on your keyboard and it will swap them. All right, so we want the white as the front one. Now, up here are the attributes for the tool. The mode is we want to paint in an overlay mode. Okay, we have the opacity. We want to bring the opacity down to maybe 75%. So we're on the layer now. Make sure you're on the layer. You're not on the image itself or the layer itself. And we want to get a little bigger of a brush. And we just want to paint along this edge. And it will help get rid of that black edge. You can see maybe a little in here. I don't know if you could see this in the video, but it's definitely helping her blend in a little bit. And you could turn the opacity up higher if you need to. And that's it. I think we're done. So that's how you replace that background. Now, if you find that you need to come back in here and maybe readjust the brightness of the sky, all you have to do is double click right there and you have the controls pop back up, so you could kind of readjust them if need be, like that. I think that's pretty good. We're done. So now we're going to save it. So you could just hit, I think the easiest thing to do, actually, but it's a little dangerous, just close it like you're going to close it, and it's going to ask you, do you want to save them? And you're going to say save. Okay, so it saved it. And you can see down here is the status bar or the progress bar as it's saving it. So it's going to take a little while because there's multiple layers. So it takes a little while, and it closed it. Now we want to close this one down, and it's just closed. Now we'll close Photoshop down. Now you can see it didn't affect, remember I said we didn't have to send a copy of the background image over because it didn't affect that one. There is the one we just did now. There's the one I did the other day. You can see it's a little bit different, and I have the background just slightly, it's hard to do it identical each time. This one I think is I took my time, obviously. I'm trying to teach and talk at the same time. I think the one I did originally looks much better. But you get the drift. There's our original image. We didn't damage any pixels at all, so we could always fall back on that. And there is our processed image. So that's how you do it. Now again, I apologize to you folks that are a little more advanced in Photoshop, how I painstakingly explained every little thing I did. But I hope that helps you folks that are really new to Photoshop. And you know, now you know how to do something like this. Now, I will be coming out, I think, with a new series. I'm going to call it maybe Photoshop for Beginners or Getting Started in Photoshop. And really, as a photographer, there's not a lot you need to do or need to know in Photoshop to get started. But there are some things you should know how to do, something like this and some other things you should know how to do in Photoshop that you can't do in Lightroom. So that's what that series will cover, and it's probably going to be a relatively short series, I would imagine under 10 videos. Just show you some essential things you need to learn for Photoshop if you're probably a primarily a Lightroom user. Let's put it that way. All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you everyone that watches my videos. I truly do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.